We are live. Let's keep our fingers crossed that you can hear me. The audio has been a pain in the butt lately. Let me do a quick test. If this doesn't work, I'll be on my laptop, but I prefer mobile streaming if I can help it. All right. There we go. We are live. There we go. And I got it tested. We're all good. All right. Let's just give it a bit of time. Let's see who joins. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I hope everybody is doing well and having an excellent day. I cannot wait. When I will be traveling one more time. I'm going to be going to Chicago. Then we got the Hearts. We got Smokey. Then visiting Columbia. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's chat about Freemasonry. I think for today, honestly, I don't have any specific topics. Rather, it's just hang out, see who joins, and see what you guys want to talk about. Um, Although I have really enjoyed the topics we've discussed this week. Specifically, I've really enjoyed it would have been Wednesdays or Tuesdays. It was today's Thursday, Tuesday's live stream where we talked about scams, how to avoid them. It is the season when there can be a lot of scam activity and fraud, including sometimes people committing Masonic frauds. So how to spot them, how to be aware of them, how to avoid them. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to, I really thought that was a valuable stream. Hello, Dad. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I love you. Thank you for the Christmas gift. By the way, I'm going to send you, I have an idea of what I'm going to send you for Christmas once I know for sure. Well, you get it in the mail anyways. Hello, Courtney. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. Okay, Mario knows. I can do my best to answer it. Keep in mind, I'm a Mason out of Ontario, the Grand Lodge of Ontario, so I have no say over, or not even say, I have no influence or say or anything like that regarding the Grand Lodge of New York. I can give you some general information though, based on my experiences. Um, just keep in mind though, it can take a little bit of time from the initial contact to actually getting the Grand Lodge response or getting response from Masonry. It depends how busy the Masons are. I don't know who Alvin the Great is, so maybe. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember you asking me that. Well, I would. I would. I mean, I guess, but my first question would be, are you planning to travel back and forth between Georgia and New York frequently? Like, is there a specific reason? Hello, Zion So Fresh. Please hit like and subscribe. Like, is there a reason you'd rather be a member of a lodge in New York? Like, maybe you had a family member who was a member in New York, or it's got some type of emotional resonance to be a Mason in New York. If not, I'd say it would make more sense probably to apply to a lodge in Georgia. Just explain to them that you did apply to be a member of a lodge in New York, but you've moved and now you're looking to be a member there. A lot of weights here. We got 3 weights. I'm hanging out. Afternoon, Michael Moore. Still sorry, any word if you'll be coming to see us on Saturday at 2? Um, how can you be a Freemason? I assume that's the question you're asking, Zion. Well, the old standby, to be one, ask one. What you need to first do is, and when I say that, I don't mean online. Um, what you need to do is find a Masonic lodge in your area, a recognized Masonic lodge, contact them, express your interest, why you're interested in being a Freemason, and or even if you just want to learn more info, and then set up a time to meet with them, talk to them, get to know them. Um, yes, you can be anything. Freemasonry welcomes men of all different ethnicities. Um, I've sat in lodges with, and in my current lodge, we have Black Masons, Asian, South American, European, Indigenous, uh, the whole rainbow of humanity, if you will. There is, I mean, Prince Hall Freemasonry as well, which historically was for Black African American men who wanted to join Freemasonry. They are also a wonderful organization, and in 2025 they accept white members. So really, it's no different. But if you wanted, from a historical perspective, to join a organization that was initially specifically for Black men, started by a man called Prince Hall in 1776, if I recall correctly, or seven, you could look at joining Prince Hall. Um, Brian Walker jumping in saying, I love bacon. I mean, I love bacon as well. Um, there's nothing better than going to a like hotel and they have those breakfast buffets and they have the tray full of bacon. That is delicious. Hello, Maxwell E. Scott. Do you do, oh, Michael with the joke. We do, I mean, as a rule, we do not do, I don't know what you mean by discounts. Like when you're looking to join Freemasonry, there are dues that you have to pay. Those dues can be, it depends on the lodge and how expensive and the operating cost of the lodge. I know some dues are as cheap as $40 American per year. Some are as expensive as $500 per year, right? It just depends on the lodge itself and how much it costs. Um, if you're struggling financially, certainly there are lodges who will forgive dues, who will offer benevolence to help cover the cost of dues. But as a general rule, there are no discounts. Alvin York was Alvin the Great. I don't know who Alvin York was. I could look him up. He may have been a Freemason. There were a lot of Masonic veterans over the years, so maybe. Zion So Fresh, a lot of people confuse the Freemasons with the Illuminati. It doesn't help that there are so many scammers in the world who love to compare or send messages claiming to be from like the Masonic Illuminati Association, which is very annoying when scammers do that because it confuses people and makes them think that the Illuminati and Freemasons are the same. Um, but no, the Illuminati is a different organization, really doesn't exist to my knowledge as of 2025. Where am I from, Maxwell? I'm from Canada, born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Currently live in Windsor, Ontario. Maxwell, please hit like and subscribe. Um, Zion So Fresh, please hit like and subscribe as well. Yes, Nam 6236. Every lodge is democratic. In fact, I think one of the greatest strengths of Freemasonry, one of the reasons I love it so much, is its strong adherence to democratic principles. It's always been modeled as a democratic organization. No one person, even the worshipful master, even the grand master, has absolute power over anything. Everything is democratically decided, which is again another reason I always point out why Freemasonry is not a cult, because cults are famous for not being democratic. It requires unquestioned loyalty to a particular idea or group or philosophy, whatever it might be, right? We in Canada, we in Freemasonry believe in democracy. I am from Monaco. Awesome. I don't know if I've ever had anybody from Monaco on here before. Thank you for being here. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I do not know what the secret code is to which you refer, Nick Ramsey. So, hello. One does not just knock 3 times, Spirit of Justice, but thank you for being here. What is Scientology? Scientology is something I know almost nothing about. It's not about Freemasonry. Scientology and Freemasonry are different organizations. Um, to my understanding, Scientology is a religion, whereas Freemasonry is a civic organization. It's not a religion. Thank you, Maxwell. I appreciate that. Seth, it has been a long time. If you ever want to keep up with what I'm doing, make sure you turn on your notifications in this channel, right? Make sure you turn on your notifications. It's very important. That way, whenever I'm doing anything, you'll see it pop up. And follow me on all my social media accounts. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, etc., etc. I got grounded. Well, that sucks. Make sure you have your parents' permission to be on stream. Well, it depends on the when you say God doesn't get accepted, it depends on the circumstances. So almost every lodge will ask you, and they should ask you, when you're applying, have you ever applied to be a Mason anywhere else and been denied, right? So they'll ask you that question. Um, if it was actually like they went to a vote, the vote was negative, and you were told like the vote's negative, you're not accepted. That's one thing. Sometimes though, and I've seen this happen, a person applies to be a Freemason. They meet with him, they talk with him. The lodge maybe feels like he's not ready, or he comes to decide he's not ready to join, he's too busy, and he decides to withdraw his application before it goes to a vote. In which case, the application was revoked. There was no vote, so he was not denied. Or if there's an issue about recognition, right? Some Grand Lodges don't recognize each other. If you applied, let's say, to be part of the Grand Orient of France, they deny you. That doesn't mean, for our purposes, you be considered to be denied Masonic application. It's complicated. It depends on the circumstances. My advice is just, be as honest as you can when it comes to your application. And even if they don't ask, tell them, I applied to be part of this Masonic body. I'm not a member in this Masonic body because this is what happened, right? So let them know what happened. That's always my advice to any applicant if they have any concern about, could be anything. They had a criminal record, they have health problems, they have financial problems. Just be honest. Be as honest as you can and direct as you can with what happened, and let the lodge decide. That's all you go. That's all you can do. Hello, Dream Seeker. Welcome back. Well, racism should deny one from being a Freemason because a Freemason should not be racist. Being racist is not good. Where are Freemasons looking for new members? Asks. I do not, Seth. I do not do that. And you shouldn't be drinking or doing drugs. What are Freemasons looking for in new members? That's a really good question. Honestly, I don't know if any Freemasons can answer that, and maybe that's a problem. Um, there's the standard. Are you of the correct age? To join the fraternal side, are you a man? Do you believe in a supreme being? After that, you know, good morals, good character. The problem is it's really, really hard to know. I mean, I think one of our issues within Freemasonry is we don't have a scientific enough or strict enough approach to how we welcome in new members. I've often argued we should be doing personality assessments on new applicants and looking specifically for applicants who have a personality trait that is high in openness and curiosity, because apparently, at least the Masons I've talked to and I've done personality tests on, those who are active and engaged, they tend to be very curious, at least when it comes to personality assessments. So maybe there's something there, but I'm not positive. That's the other issue, Nathan, right? I mean, there is no standard set of questions. The standard set of questions is, do you believe in a supreme being? And then in Ontario, the questions surround things like, do you believe the supreme being has made his will known to man, favors virtue? But after that, thank you, Brother Michael Moore. That's incredibly kind of you. After that, it gets very complicated because it just kind of goes by feel. I do think some lodges, and Michael Moore, actually, you may know of this. I don't know if you have heard of it. There may be some lodges who actually create like a standard set of questions that they ask all of their new applicants. But in my experience, that's not really the case. Mostly, they just talk to them, ask them why they want to join, what they hope to get from it, sorry, YouTube decides Nigerian Nightmare. Um, you know, um, um, what they hope to gain from it, what they can contribute to it, family members, any concerns they have. They talk to the family about the same thing. Like, do you have concerns about your husband joining? What can we do to talk to you about that? I really think, honestly, Nathan, and I've argued this before, but this is not a standard. I've always thought that when we have a new applicant, we should ask them for a criminal record check, we should ask them for a credit check, and we should ask them for a health report. The criminal record check, and none of the information on those things, I don't believe, should be automatically exclusionary, right? Like, I don't think, even if you have a criminal record, let's say you have really crummy credit, I don't believe that should be an automatic denial. But I do think, based on information, we should engage with more questions. So if you have a criminal record, what is the offense? What happened? How have you changed? How have you made amends for it? Um, what are you trying to do to make things better, or how have you already made things better, right? When it comes to the credit, if the credit is really low, first talk to them about, look, there are expenses to being a Freemason. It's usually relatively cheap, maybe $40 a year, can be as low, but there are expenses. It is going to cost you some money. If your credit is in the tank, can you afford it? Should we be asking you to take on something you may not be able to afford? Is that fair to you? Or will you need to start coming to benevolence, asking for support? Is that going to put strain on the lodge? And if they say, well, I made some mistakes in the past, but I'm getting better, my credit is growing, okay, but at least we know and we've asked the question. And then a health report, because Freemasonry, I mean, it's not physically strenuous by any means. However, it's good to know from a worshipful master's perspective if there are things we should keep in mind. For example, let's say the applicant has trouble sitting for long periods of time because he has back problems, then maybe it's worth the master knowing that, and he can tell the brother, hey, this is going to be a long meeting. If at any point you need to stand up to stretch, go ahead. You're not going to distract anybody. Or let's say he has a situation where he may need to sit close to the door, maybe something where he needs to use the washroom more frequently. Again, just tell him you can sit close to the door, and whenever you need to go ahead, right? The more we know, the more we can plan and sort things out. Welcome, Vin Plesia, 33rd. Congratulations. Please, Vin, I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. I'm truly grateful that you're here. Appreciate you joining. So most lodges don't do their dues monthly. They do their dues yearly. And again, I've known some lodges. So put it this way. I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges. Of those 5, my cheapest set of dues is $40 per year. My most expensive dues are $275 per year. So it goes, it's one of those things where every lodge sets their own dues structure. $150 per year. Now, in some lodges will offer discount, like not discounts, but they'll offer monthly payment plans, especially the brother's struggling and can't pay it all at once. It really just depends on the lodge itself and how they want to operate those things. So yeah. Um, YouTube stab worthy. Good to see you again as well. I hope I'm not stab worthy. XXYY. I mean, you can get rich on your own, but you can't get rich through Freemasonry. Anybody who promises you, I just talked about this when I talked about how to beware of Masonic scams. One way that you can know somebody is engaging you in a Masonic scam is if they tell you that by joining Freemasonry, you'll get rich and famous, or influence, or power, or some special privilege. I mean, you could argue being a Freemason is a privilege, which I would say it is, but it's not going to give you any rank, power, influence, money in the world. You're not going to start dating supermodels. Believe me, I've tried. Being a Freemason doesn't help that at all. It's just because I'm so handsome I get to do it. But if you, anybody tells you, for example, if you join Freemasonry, you'll get 600,000 a month, you will not. That is a lie. So they're scamming you. Very sorry to say. Chris, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I never respond to those comments. What I will say though is please hit the like and subscribe button. They don't. They don't. Oh, I can show you my coins if you want, XXY. I got 1 million coins. I've been lucky enough to collect so many of them, and it's wonderful. Uh, that's it. So no, I mean not. How do I put this? So certainly, Nathan, legally or based on like our rules and regulations, no, right? Everybody's expected to pay. If you want to help your lodge, pay and pay on time. One of the most challenging things for a Masonic lodge is when people are paying late. Um, now, um, I would say unofficially, you know, if let's say the lodge knows that a brother is struggling, um, maybe he lost his job, whatever, he had medical expenses. If the lodge knows that one brother is struggling and can't pay his dues, maybe again they'll do benevolence, they'll forgive. And if they know another brother's really well off and doing fine, it's not that they expect more from him per se, but in that moment, they're not going to think about benevolence or something like that, right? Lodges will step in and help brothers who can't pay their dues because they're financially, challenged. When you say, though, more responsibility, the other thing, though, is I will say I don't know of any Masonic lodges who set their dues structure as a percentage of income. Um, I am kind of my I don't know, Dad, Michael, if you have any thoughts on this. I am um, I have been because this question has popped up a few times. Part of me has been questioning and wondering if it does make sense to consider a due structure, which is actually a percentage of income as opposed to a flat rate. So everybody pays, let's say, 10% of their income to the lodge, every member, I should say. But obviously, if you're making $1 million a year, then 10% is very different than, say, if you're making $100,000 a year or whatever it might be. I don't personally think that would work just because, at the end of the day, the way like lodge expenses are set. So every year, you know how much money you need to make to pay your expenses. The easiest and least complicated way to figure that out is to then just say, okay, if we have, let's say it costs you $100,000 to run your lodge every year, and you have 1,000 members, $100 every member, something like that, right? Once you start trying to do percentages of incomes, then you have to ask brothers for their income information. That gets you into issues of privacy and is it before tax, after tax? Like, there's a lot of issues with kind of percentage of income as a due structure, but it has come up. Some people have asked those questions. And I did find it kind of an interesting thought experiment. but I just don't think it would work. Um, but so that's a long way of saying for lodges, it's a flat rate. Almost, I've never heard of any lodges doing it any other way. It's a flat rate, usually between $40 US per year and let's say 500 US per year. Um, well, no. So let's say you're a 26-year-old Mason and you're broke and you have no job. You still have your yearly dues that you'll be expected to pay. But if the Masonic Lodge knows that you're broke and knows that you have no job, they may forgive the dues or pay them out of benevolence for a time. There are many lodges that will do that. It depends on the lodge, though. The lodge doesn't have to do that. Or a brother may step in and pay them for you, right? The lodge doesn't have to do that. It's up to the lodge to decide. But I do know many brothers who have, contacted lodges throughout the world because I know Masons all over the world and said, like, I can't afford my dues this year. And the lodge has forgiven them somehow. Very often, what they've done is they've paid the dues themselves out of their benevolence fund, which is like a charity fund. Or they will actually do some, they will cover the cost of the brother's housing. They'll pay the brother's rent or mortgage for that month, and then he'll pay a portion of that back in dues, something to that extent. If you make 10 million a year, you would be paying a lot. That's true. Michael Moore, I wouldn't do a percentage of dues. I think they should divide the budget. I do too, Michael. I agree with you, but it was an interesting idea. And as one of the reasons I don't think it would work is what Nathan says. A lot of people don't like telling others how much they make, and I think that's fair. Um, you're right. We do get Freemasonry much cheaper than its value. I certainly do. 12.50 a month is a steal compared to other luxuries. Um, make them work it off. Well, I mean, you could. I mean, but brethren, I don't think brethren should be doing it that because that gets dangerously close to some type of indentured servitude, which I definitely don't support. Um, like that is no, I don't think that would work. I mean, hopefully, if the brother receives benevolence or gets a discount on his dues, he maybe in some ways feel more inclined to work more for the lodge, whether it be, showing up to clean up or take out trash or vacuum. But I don't think you can require that because that gets close to some type of servitude, which I'm not a fan of. Um, I've seen that as well, Michael Moore. Well, I've seen lodges on a monthly basis or for 1 month paying for a brother's mortgage or paying rent for a brother, and not just that brother, but it's for his whole family as well. Um, yeah, I think pass it on. Yeah, no, you know, now at our temple, thankfully, we have professional snow removal services that we've hired. But back in the day, yeah, brothers would wake up early and go shovel the parking lot and the sidewalk. You can be a Christian Freemason. I would say most Masons are Christian, either active or at least culturally, like they would identify as Christians. I would say throughout the world, the most common religion you see reflected in Masonic membership is Christianity, but we have Muslim members, Jewish members, Hindu, Sikh, etc., etc. And then you have, yeah, and then that's another way that lodges do it as well, where their dues will cover operating expenses, but meals and refreshments will be covered in a separate fund, paid for through, let's say, a cash bar. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's very smart of your Grand Lodge. Good for them. Well, so Freemasonry XXYY. And by the way, everybody watching this, please hit like and subscribe if you've not done so. Um, when you say temple with no deity, this is why a lot of jurisdictions, California is the big one, but many, no longer refer to their buildings as Masonic temples. They'll call them Masonic halls, Masonic halls or Masonic centers, Masonic conference centers, whatever it might be. right? That's what they will call it. Because a lot of people, when they hear the term temple, think religion, right? Freemasonry is not a religion. It's not a religious organization. It's a civic organization. We use the term temple really as an allegory to King Solomon's temple, but it's allegorical. It's not a religion. I mean, it is kind of like an all boys club, right? It is a civic fraternal organization. There's also the side for women Freemasons as well as Eastern Star. But thinking about it as an all boys club is not the worst way to think of it by any means. So, is there drinking at lodges? It depends on the jurisdiction. Certainly not during a meeting. There should never be drinking, not in any lodge. But after, many Masons will have drinks. It just depends on the jurisdiction. For a long time, Texas, for example, was a dry jurisdiction. So you could not have any alcohol in any building under any circumstances. That's changed recently. But things change. When you say children, with Freemasonry, you have to be at least over the age of 18 in the States. In Canada, it's usually 21. There are Masonic youth groups, though. There's Demolay and Rainbow for kids. Um, I've heard some as low as $40 per year in Texas. Maybe they increase them. Well, the symbolism, I mean, many organizations use symbolism, right? Symbols are part of almost every organization, whether it be secular or religious. I mean, the Rotary Club has its symbols, right? The Rotarians, the Elks, the Moose, the city, like the city of Windsor has its seal and its symbols, and the mayor wears a special collar and he has a seal of office. Coca-Cola, that's a symbol, right, on the can. I mean, symbols are not necessarily reflective of religion. They're just reflective of a common understanding, right? When Freemasonry, the symbols represent a common understanding amongst Freemasons. Um, and in some cases within the world, not as much anymore as it used to be, unfortunately. However, historically, every community member, if they saw a square and compass, knew what they meant. They knew what the square and compasses were. No, no, there's no children's Bible studies. Well, so, because I mean, Freemasonry doesn't study any religious text, Bible or anything else. Um, well, so there's also a couple other Masonic youth groups that I don't know as much about, like Job's Daughters. But the two big ones are Demolay, which is for young men. If I recall correctly, I could be getting the ages incorrect. Ages 9 to 21. And Rainbow, which is ages 9 to 21. Forgive me if I got those incorrect. Interesting enough, Bill Clinton was a Demolay. So these are youth groups. They were started by Freemasons. They give a chance for, primarily what you often see is it's the children of Masons, but not exclusively. Anybody can join to kind of engage in what could be considered Masonic activities. So they learn about rituals, ceremonies, opening and closing their chapters. They tend to do charitable work, service work. In some ways, you can kind of view it almost as like a Boy Scouts club, but run by the Freemasons or run by Masonic bodies. Michael Moore could probably talk to you more about Demolay. So 12 to 21. Um, in Michigan, I understand it's doing very well. Sometimes it can act as a kind of a farm system or feeder system where young men after Demolay become Freemasons. However, um, a lot of young men become Demolay and then don't join Freemasonry, and that's okay as well. Um, I think in Ontario, Michael Moore, it's 9 to 21, but I could be mistaken about those numbers. Um, all right, Big C. Any celebs like Bill? When you say any celebs like Bill, you mean any celebs like Bill Clinton? Um, who have been demolay. I mean, the one I know of who's a famous demolay member was Bill Clinton. I don't know about any other ones off the top of my head. Um, what do you mean? I don't think he's ashamed of it. I mean, I don't think he talks about it much, Bill Clinton, because I actually don't think it came up very much. But I think he talked about it in his book, if I recall correctly, in his autobiography that he was a demolay. So I don't think he's ashamed of it. It's kind of unfortunate, I guess, that he didn't decide to continue become a Freemason. He would have been the 15th or 16th president to be a Freemason. But and yeah, Job's daughters as well. I don't think we have a Job's daughters in Canada at least in Ontario anymore, but I could be mistaken. I will say about Rainbow, one of the really interesting, um, one of the most interesting things, I ever saw was when I was worship master the first time in 2015, we had a presentation about Rainbow in my Masonic Lodge, and one of the presenters, he was a Mason himself, he was the father of three girls. He said, I always wanted to pass on Freemasonry to my family. I had three daughters, so I didn't think I would be able to do so. And having three girls, I, enrolled them in Rainbow, and it allowed me to continue the Masonic tradition within my family and pass down Freemasonry from myself to my daughters. So, I mean, those Rainbow, you know, chapters, they do some incredible work. They do some incredible charitable work, some incredible memorization work. They do a better job than I would say a lot of Masons. Um, yeah, XX. I mean, I part of it is the algorithm. Maybe your algorithm is not showing it. The other part of it is there was for a long time this idea within Freemasonry that we should be quiet, that we should not talk about it. That's not a traditionally historical truth. Throughout much of the 18th and early 19th centuries and 20th centuries, people encouraged to actually talk about Freemasonry. It was really in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s well, in the 1940s and 50s in Europe, and then the 60s and 70s in America, that Masons started to become much more quiet about it, unfortunately. Um, I don't think, um, I think that was a mistake. I think it's better to talk about it. But I mean, Craft Cast, Masonic Roundtable, there's a um, Sepulveda out of Sepulveda out of Florida does a great job as well. Really, I did not know Walt Disney was a demolay. That's really cool. I am not Andrew Tate's. I look like Andrew Tate's brother. Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Tates. I mean, they had some fellas, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know what the ladies think. They can tell me if the ladies think he's handsome, then I'll take it as a compliment. Um, yeah, I didn't think Walt Disney was a Mason, but I did not know he was Demolay. That's really cool. Does Disney do anything with Demolay? Like, do any Demolay groups ever take trips to Disney World or Disneyland in honor of Walt Disney being a Demolay? That'd be really cool, actually, to see. Um, organize a trip to Disney in honor of Walt Disney. I used to work in a prison, Fran Franks. Please hit like and subscribe. So maybe working in a prison, it rubbed off on me. Who knows? Um, I'll take it. I mean, prison wardens are handsome fellas, so I will take it. I guess that makes sense from a financial perspective. Um, I can understand that. right? It's kind of like WWE, right? So much of what they want is, that's famously why, like Vince McMahon, whenever new people were joining, he would always like spell their name in a slightly different way, or give them not let them use their real name, but give them a character name, or like a nickname that he could, or that WWE could trademark and own for themselves. So, sorry, how was what XX? I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'll say Freemasonry is honest if it's being done right. There is corruption in the heart of every man. Freemasons are human beings, so it's always possible that you know corruption exists within it. But I think if you're following Masonic principles and teachings, that will not be the case. Oh yeah, I mean that was a WWE. That's a famous WWE thing, right? Where they'll just change a person's name by one letter or something, so that they can have ownership of it. Um, I mean, I will say it was a job, right? Prison in Canada. So I think for me, the first day you're going into work in a jail and you go through one set of doors, you're outside of a door, it opens, you go through it, it closes, then you wait and go through another door. Like you hear the doors locking behind you, you realize um, you realize like, oh, it feels different. It feels like you're going into something different. It can be a little bit scary, nerve-wracking, but within, the first few weeks, maybe a month, you realize, oh, it's actually just a job, like anything else, and it becomes boring. I think for everybody, very quickly, the boring, repetitive nature of work takes over whatever excitement there may have been. But I mean, I miss the people I worked with. It was Sometimes it was a really hard job. Sometimes it was, a regular job. Sometimes it was an easier job. It really just depended on the day. But I like to think I did some good there. I hope so. You like to think you make the world a better place wherever you're at. Yes, that's where I learned MMA. No, a lot of people that gets overdone. I mean, there were correctional officers there. If I ever were to find myself in trouble, I know that they'd be in there to protect me. Not that I ever saw, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. I'm sure stuff like that happens everywhere. I don't know, but um, not that I was ever, but I never paid attention to any of that stuff, anyways. So I train MMA. I mean, I started training professional wrestling, and I enjoyed it very much. I still, referee as professional wrestling matches, but then to help me learn more things and to help me be better at it, I started training MMA as well. Just a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, I was training boxing a little bit. It's good. I mean, mostly I do it for the health benefits. I'm no fool. I have no legs. If ever were to throw down, I'd be in a bit of trouble. But it's still good to have, if for no other reason than the health benefits, which is really important, I think. I think I've always said we in Freemasonry have a responsibility to protect our health and well-being. So nice. I'd like to check out a boxing club. I was training through Apex MMA, which was wonderful. Great place. If you're in Windsor, they're on Highland. They were awesome. Um, Check them out. Really cool dudes. Everybody there was really friendly. People helped me. I was going in there with no training at all. So, well, I shouldn't say with no. I was going in there with some MMA and wrestling training, almost no striking training or anything like that. So they kind of started me off at the basics and helped me become, I enjoyed it quite a bit, is what I'll say. You can, I don't understand what that means at all, XX. You can buy your own meals at McDonald's if you so choose. You can buy me a meal at McDonald's if you so choose. Can I game this? I mean, you shouldn't be trying to game any system. Usually that causes more trouble than it's worth. If you want to give me $1,000 a week, though, I will take it. Just give me a super chat. If you want to give me 99 cents on this stream, feel free and I'll take it. Um, but I don't think it matters where you're at. It's really, really tough sometimes, and jail was no different. But I was also a probation officer before that, and it was the same thing. Sometimes it was really, really hard. Sometimes it went really well. So, as a prisoner, no, you cannot buy McDonald's as a prisoner. They have like what's it called, commissary, or like you could every there's a list of things you could purchase if you had money in your account, usually treats or snacks or things like that. You had to kind of ask somebody to put money into your account. You could not be ordering like Domino's pizza or anything like that though. Everything had to be pre-approved. There was like a list that got sent out. So sometimes brothers would have friends or family members put money in their account that they could use to purchase things. So, but no, you could not buy McDonald's. What one thing I used to do though, and this is actually um, we received donations actually through a Masonic group, and I would purchase a bunch of gift cards. It was like $10. Usually it was, in one case it was KFC, another time it was McDonald's, another time it was Subway. But we would, when a prisoner was being released from custody, I would put one of the gift cards in their property. So, if they were getting released and let's say they didn't have anywhere to live, or they didn't have any, heaven forbid, didn't have any food or whatever it is, at least they had a gift card. They could go get a meal, get a cup of coffee somewhere. Nice, XX. That is not the case here, though. That is not the case here, at least not to what I'm aware of. Oh, well, there was some of that, XX. Like there was, for example, weekend sentences where, let's say, the person, it was a relatively minor offense and the person had a job, and they want to keep the job. What they would do is the person would, be in custody from Friday to Sunday, work during the week, be back in custody the next weekend. So it happens, XX. We did our best to find everybody housing when they came into custody, but sometimes it worked, sometimes we weren't successful. But that was my job. I would work with people who were getting out of jail and try to find them, like try to figure out whatever it is they needed. So if they needed housing, is there housing available, either a shelter or social housing, or sometimes churches and mosques would have housing at their locations where people could stay to get back on their feet, or do they need to go to a halfway house or rehab? That was a lot of what I did, is working with people being released. And with homeless people, it was a lot of challenges. So, how much to survive? I don't know. It's funny. I've talked about this a bunch of times. You cannot separate the economic, or you cannot separate the conditions of a country from the conditions of Freemasonry within that country. And that includes the political conditions, that includes the social conditions like crime, that also includes the economic conditions. I talk about the economy all the time. When the budget came out, I talked about how that might affect Freemasonry. Because if people are undergoing economic stresses within their life, or within their lives, one thing is they're more than likely to also maybe be stressed as to how it relates to Freemasonry. Can they attend, a lodge, or do they need to work extra shifts? I would say, according to Google, it's about $100,000 per year is considered comfortable in 2025. Average would be 79,000 per year. So 79,000 per year equals living comfortable. That's 79,000 Canadian. So assume about 100, 105 US, give or take. That's what Google says. I mean, that sounds probably right to me. I guess it depends on how you define comfortable. Certainly, if you're single, that would be very comfortable, I would think. If you have a family, if you have a wife, probably still, or husband, probably still okay. Once you start getting into kids, I would suspect that would be a lot harder. Um, define comfortable. I mean, I'm happy, put it that way. I'm happy. But I think one of the things with the idea of being comfortable, right, is purpose. And yeah, Dad brings up a good point. I know rich people who are not particularly comfortable or, well, I don't know mega rich people. I know people who are making a lot of money who are not happy because they have no purpose. They're just collecting money to collect it, right? I don't know people who are, lower middle class, but who seem quite happy and quite content because they have a purpose in their lives of some sort. Sometimes that purpose could even be Freemasonry. It gives them a goal. So I do believe that there is, within Freemasonry, many ways to find purpose, and that purpose can sustain you even if you're struggling financially. Now, obviously, if you're living on the street or you don't think you can make your rent, then money matters quite a bit. Economics matters quite a bit. But there is evidence that at a certain point, making money for its own sake is not going to create happiness for you. So, which I would agree with. At least that's been my experience. What is an S class? How chivalric traditions transformed Freemasonry from a craftsman's guild to an aristocratic fraternity in French. That'd be a really good subject. Because yeah, while Freemasonry was transforming in England, it was transforming in France as well. I would say one thing I would keep in mind as well, when we're talking about Freemasonry, right, is one thing I've wanted to do for a while is, but again, people don't like to share people don't like to share necessarily their income, but if we were to do a survey of Masons and see what the average income is within Freemasonry in, let's say, state by state or province by province. Welcome, Mr. Keeps. Thank you for being here. I would also say it might be worth even exploring what the average income is amongst active Masons versus inactive Masons. Because I could imagine, I don't know for sure, but I could imagine a situation where your active Masons are making in Canada, let's say, over 80,000 a year, and your inactive or disengaged Masons are making, let's say, less than that, or even let's say less than 50 a year. Because if you are one of the reasons you may be disengaging from Freemasonry is because you need to work a second job, you don't think you can afford to attend ticketed events like banquets. Who knows? Maybe you're embarrassed to ask for benevolence, so you just don't attend lodge and hope they don't notice you haven't paid your dues. I mean, those things can happen, right? It is more expensive to live in New York than to live in Fargo. That's why, the Masonic dues and costs associated with Freemasonry will be higher in New York than in Fargo. I have no doubt. Again, New York City. And speaking of averages, I'm sure there are exceptions to that rule, but in my experience, small towns tend to have significant reductions or be much less expensive for Freemasonry than big cities. At least that is my experience. Like the, do you mean like YouTube or do you mean the visa, Mr. Keeps? Because there is, and I've been looking into it, a digital nomad visa. It's not recognized by every country, but it's recognized by a lot of countries in South America, for example, um, where basically, like, let's say you have a lifestyle or travel YouTube channel that makes you money, and you want to record yourself traveling to Colombia, where I'm going. You can get a visa to record and make money while you're there. Um, you can go there to perform business activities like meet with people, meet with travel agents. But if you want to record something that will be monetized on Google, that's a whole separate can of tuna. Yeah, no, I can understand that. Visa issues, nomad digital visas, those things can be very tough to navigate. Um, I mean, I'm doing pretty good at it, but even for me when I'm traveling, you're always trying to check on like what are the visa requirements, health requirements, what can I do, what can't I do, what is the difference between a business trip and a work trip, which can become a big deal. Um, you messed up. What did I mess up on? I'm sure I messed up on many things, but what did I mess up on in this one particular case? So far, I've done pretty well. At least things seem to be going well. So happy Thursday, Droll DeCamp. How is it going for you? Thank you for being here. I hope that you're doing well. Yeah, but if I had vlogged it, I would have needed a visa in England. So I wanted to, but I would needed a visa. Getting a visa is really tough. So I've tried to. My usual kind of goal is when I'm traveling, I'll post things on social media and certainly my personal social media accounts. I'm happy to post things and I hope people check them out and follow me there. If it's something that I could monetize or could be monetized, um, not so much. But that's not to say certainly whether I'm vlogging or not. If I'm making contacts, meeting with potential, if I'm making contacts or having meetings or getting new subscribers with the people I meet, then you can count that as work purposes, to my understanding. I'm not a tax expert by any means, but certainly there's different rules and requirements around what you can and cannot claim. Um, well, if you're earning income in another country or while you're in another country, then you generally need a visa. Not everywhere, there's different rules. I want to make a very important caveat here that I am not an expert on um, I am not an expert on visa requirements and rules, things like that. So if I'm not monetized, so on my personal YouTube channel, Cameron Adamson, I can certainly vlog and it's not monetized. But if I can make any money while I'm there, it's certainly a gray area. I like to be really careful. My advice would be if you are interested in this stuff, talk to a travel lawyer. For me, though, it's very much a gray area. I try to avoid it, right? So my usual rule is if I'm traveling, to a different country, I'm certainly happy to, get connections meet Masons, talk to them about what they're doing, get ideas, maybe set up a time to interview them when I get back and I'm in Canada. Show them my channel, promote my channel. And on my personal YouTube accounts, I'll post things and maybe even, I might even do some live streams, um, do some live streams from my personal account when I'm in Colombia. Um, right, and all that stuff I think would all that stuff would constitute business travel, which would be allowable under an ETA, for example, which I had. If it's a if it's something though that's not simply business travel but actually income earning, then it gets more complicated. And you're not wrong, Mr. Keeps. It's almost certain that it wouldn't actually make a difference. However, I always talk about we and Freemasons should be respectful of the laws of the countries to which we're traveling. That includes visa requirements and visa entries and what my ETA says. And for example, making sure I have a valid passport, et cetera, et cetera. All that stuff matters. Um, and so I try my best. I'm saying there's a lot of gray areas. I'm saying I might not always get it correct, but I try my best to be, respectful of those things as much as I can. Next week, my last trip of the year, there is a Museum of Freemasonry of South America there, as well as a Grand Lodge of Bogota, Colombia, and there's some type of holiday thing um, happening. So I'll definitely be taking a ton of pictures, meeting a ton of people, getting contacts. Hopefully, they'll subscribe to the podcast. I'll be posting a lot of my personal accounts as well. Um, I wouldn't be on the other side of prison bars. That wouldn't happen. But again, it's just one of those things where I want to try to be as respectful as I can of it. Um, Figure out what those gray areas are. I mean, it's always kind of a gray area with this stuff. So, but yeah, if you follow me on social media, especially um, especially if you follow me on um, Instagram, you will see all of my pictures. So please follow me there. I keep everybody up to date on that stuff. And honestly, Mr. Keeps, what I could probably do, to be fair, is I could probably do live streams on Instagram, which I tend not to, but I could do live streams from Instagram. It'd be really fun. And yes, Stroll to Camp. The best way to hear about it, see about it, follow me on all these social media sites. Not to change the subject, but where are you from? I am from Canada, born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Currently live in Windsor. Currently live in Windsor, Ontario. I always say it. Canada is the greatest country in the world, in part because we have the greatest neighbors in the world, and that is something I truly believe. Do you know my Instagram information, Droll de Camp? I'll leave you the info in the chat if you don't know it. Nice. I love Indiana. Indiana has some beautiful Masonic buildings. Absolutely gorgeous um, Masonic buildings. So it's very snowy here right now, though. All right. Well, I'm glad that because honestly, I know a lot of people hate snow. I love snow. I think snow is wonderful. One thing actually am going to talk about, I'm just looking this up now, but tomorrow's stream at 1 p.m., I am going to talk about International Day of Persons with Disabilities. I'm disabled. Um, But I'm going to talk about it as it relates to Freemasonry. There are many ways we within Freemasonry can make our buildings more accessible, and we should make them more accessible. So I'll talk about that. Um, Thank you, Thomas, and thank you for being here. I hope that you are doing well. Um, Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, and neutral. I'd love to hear it. Another thing I should mention as well, because I mean, I've taught this before, I'm a big believer in getting vaccinated. Get yourself vaccinated. Check if you're traveling somewhere, if you need certain vaccinations. Um, that's really important also. So, or just even what's recommended. So Thomas, though, how is it going? And Crystal, are you a fan of snow? Do you like winter as well? I'm doing well. I hope that you're having a great day. How is December treating you? Because I feel like it's been a little while since you've been on streams. So 1980 snow or minus 40 degrees. That's right. That's how we should do it. You haven't got any. Do you get snow, Courtney, in your neck of the world? I am not AN. I was. Some people ask me that because I have no legs, but I was born with no legs, so not a military veteran. I'm trying to do this for a job, Thomas. So please hit that like, subscribe button, and do a 99-cent super chat. I would truly appreciate it. But yeah, I consider 99-cent super chat, and thank you to all the members who help this channel. Speaking of, if no worries, AN, please like and subscribe, though I'd appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, you can also become a Patreon. To everybody who is a Patreon, I will be sending you your information shortly, or your gifts shortly. Every Patreon member who pays even $3 a month gets a special gift at the end of the year. Some of you, some patrons I know in person, so you'll get the gift in person. Some I will see you through the apps. So, but we're gonna give it a bit more time. So, AN, do you have any questions, thoughts on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Because I think you might be new to the stream. I'm not positive. That's true. I mean, I owe a lot to veterans. We all owe a lot to veterans, to be fair. Um, but I am a member of the War Amps Champ program, which was started by veterans returning from war who are missing limbs. It's interesting. I never really thought that's a really fascinating connection because famously, so War Amps Champ program was started by World War I veterans returning from war missing limbs and started this program to help child amputees such as myself. And um, the reason that I'm able to join Freemasonry is because of veterans returning from wars missing limbs were, lobbied to be allowed to become Freemasons. So it's fascinating to think that military veterans from World War I are responsible for two of the most important things in my life. The fact the fact that I get to be a Freemason and the fact that I got to be a War Amp champ, War Amp child amputee. So that's really cool as well. It's always fun when you kind of realize these little things. It's also why I'm proud that within Freemasonry, we honor our veterans every year, both those veterans who were Masons and those who were not. But there have been many Freemasons who were veterans, and many Masons who maybe they weren't veterans because they weren't able to serve for whatever reasons. They got denied on a medical requirement, or they were either too old or too young or whatever it is, still took the time to support the war efforts in a variety of ways. For example, the Windsor Masonic Temple, to its credit, was a drop site during World War II for scrap metal, which was used in the war efforts, as well as collected donations of powdered milk to send overseas during the bombings in Great Britain during the Battle of Britain, to help those who were affected by who had lost their homes, needed food, whatever it is, um, which is fascinating as well. When I was in London or in England last week, we were driving through some of the small towns and they gave me a bit of a history lesson. It's really fascinating how much history of World War II is still in Northern England. They're talking about, for example, a lot of, Northern England had a lot of mines, right? It had coal mines, it had a lot of mills, like steel mills as well. Both of those were very necessary for the war effort to, equip the war effort with the necessary materials to build tanks and planes, whatever else you needed to build. So it was actually Northern England, like the Newcastle area, was a heavily targeted area during the war. And some of the steps that they took to deal with that targeting. For example, they would always set fires on the top of hills. The fires would, produce smoke. The smoke would get into the sky, and it made it harder for the German bombers to actually see their targets, specifically the mills and the mines, which I thought was really cool. They also talked about, they would build dummy plants. So they'd have the real steel mill, the real steel mine, or the real coal mine. Um, but then, a few hills over, they would build a fake one that was meant to look like a steel mill, looked like a mine, but didn't actually produce anything in order to, provide a decoy for the bombers, which worked apparently on a few occasions. So, and also the Halt Whistle Masonic Hall was originally or initially a staging area for troops. It was a place for troops to practice and train before they were sent overseas. So, double down. Please hit like and subscribe. The Punisher, please hit like and subscribe. Um, Alex Beaton, please hit like and subscribe as well. To all of you, please hit like and subscribe. So, Alex Beaton, why do you say this is absolute wickedness? I assume you're referring to Freemasonry in particular, or do you mean just me being on YouTube? Because I'm assuming it's Freemasonry since you're also on YouTube, but let me know if I'm incorrect. And what is it about Freemasonry that you would consider to be wicked? Because obviously I disagree, having been a Mason for 20 years and having attended Masonic events around the world, been very lucky to attend Masonic events around the world. But what is it about Freemasonry that you would consider, wicked? A prisoner of war camp. Yeah, there's been a few stories. I've talked about them in the past, stories of Freemasons starting Masonic lodges within prisoner of war camps, specifically on the Allied side, right? Because Freemasonry was outlawed in Germany, but American and British and even Canadian soldiers starting kind of Masonic lodges within war camps as best they could. Even some, Jewish Masons starting Masonic lodges in concentration camps, which to anybody who ever complains about, their life is too busy for Freemasonry, just consider, how challenging it was to do that in a concentration camp and the fact that they still did it. Maybe we have no excuses here in Canada for why we can't handle Freemasonry, or we don't have the time for it, just for whatever it's worth. Well, thank you, Double Down. You would make a great subscriber to the Square and Compass podcast, so please do so. It would be much appreciated. I'm just curious if Alex Beaton is still going to show up and if he has anything he wants to say about what he finds wicked about Freemasonry. That's a good question. That's a very general question. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened in my life? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I mean, certainly I've had plenty of jump scares, plenty of times I've been, friends jumped out and scared me or watching a movie. I've never really had any moments where I've thought like this is it. I'm gonna, die or anything like that. Um, or if they did, they happen so quickly, you just react without being scared in the moment. You get scared later thinking back on it. I don't know if I can think of any. I like in some ways losing my mom or knowing my mom was going to die. There's a scary quality to that, right? It's knowing that you're going to lose your mom. It's always scary, I think. You obviously once you become old enough to understand just mortality in general, then there's always in the back of your head, there's awareness that sooner or later you're going to lose the people you love. But when it becomes more sudden, more urgent, when they get sick, I think that can be a little bit more scary in some ways. Certainly not as scary for me as it was for my mom, I'm sure, when she was dying of cancer. But there's a scariness to that. I can't really think of any like sudden scary moments. I think it's more what scares me more in general is just this general sense of things are getting harder and more challenging within Freemasonry, within life. People seem more and more often to be falling into a greater and greater number of problems and traps and issues. And so, yeah, I think that might be what I would say. I more have just, in some ways, society in 2025, even though a lot of things are going really well, it does kind of feel like a lot of success is being built on a foundation of sand. And what scares me is how long that foundation can last. Now, I do think Freemasonry can 100% help to shore up those foundations and create stronger foundations in the world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. And I hope to be able to do that, through this channel, promote the ways Freemasonry is relevant to the communities in which we live, and in doing so, hopefully promote the ways that Freemasonry can help make the world a better place, in my humble opinion. Double down. I still hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. Dust cover actual, welcome. Well, let me ask you this. Was the doctor in A Nightmare Before Christmas? Was he incredibly handsome? Because if he was incredibly handsome, then yes. I'm sure I look just like him. Scary. Well, the unknown is always a little bit scary. I think for me personally, I wasn't scared going through my degrees, but a big part of that, right, is because a big part of that is because I grew up somewhat around Freemasonry. Like my dad was a Freemason, my grandparents, fathers were both Freemasons. So I always kind of understood I was going to make I was going to make it out alive. I had no doubt I was going to be okay, make it out of there in one piece. I think I was as nervous as anybody else is when faced with something unknown, but not as scared as someone who, let's say, has never been a Freemason before, um, and has, no kind of, has no family members who've been Freemasons, has no real engagement with or familiarity with Freemasonry or Freemasons, is joining for the first one of their family. So in that case, it really is up to the Masons themselves to make the applicant feel welcome, make him feel at ease, let him know that he's going through the same thing everybody else has gone through, and not allow him to become scared, right? Brotherly love doesn't work. Well, brotherly love may, I'm sorry your brother is MIA, Dylan, but within Freemasonry, you have, if you are a Freemason, then you have millions of brothers. Like, I don't have a familial brother. I'm an only child, but that doesn't mean that, I don't have brothers around the world. And Dylan, you can find brothers in a myriad of other places, right? You can find them through work, through shared interests. You can find them through sports, through local clubs. If you feel like need to find a brother, put yourself out there. Join groups, join clubs, find things that interest you, right? And I kind of think somebody gave this advice about dating, which is good advice, but I think it applies to making friends as well, right? It's like, instead of worrying so much about being in a relationship or whatever it is, just put yourself in situations that you're going to enjoy, find things that you like, and more than likely, other people who have the same interests will gravitate to those same clubs and groups and activities, And then you'll meet people, and you could meet people from romantic relationships. You could make new friends, meet someone who you'll grow to consider a brother. I think that's the best advice. Yeah, I mean, and that happens, right? But that doesn't mean you can't look for brothers in other places, is what I'm saying. While maybe waiting for your familial brother to kind of return to you, or to come back from his different lifestyle and stop being MIA, or to reconnect over time. It's never too late to reconnect so long as they're still around, right? And unfortunately, if they were to not be around, it's never too late to kind of not even forgive them, but spare a kind thought to them for whatever that's worth. But while you're waiting, I mean, that's my advice to people who, if their goal, if they are wanting to join Freemasonry because they feel like, I'm trying to think how to put this. If they want to join Freemasonry because they want to make friends, and that's the main reason, I appreciate that, and that's a very commendable reason, but I'm always a little bit hesitant about that as a reason. Because, you know, if you end up not enjoying Freemasonry, then you're probably not going to enjoy the people you're associating with. You're probably not going to make friends. Um, right? Like, let's say you really love, I don't know, you want to make friends, and you really love knitting. Maybe you can find a local knitting club in your area, and it's more likely that you'll make good friends there because you'll both have a shared common interest. If your reason to join Freemasonry is exclusively to meet people, and you have no other interests in Freemasonry in and of itself, you don't really like public speaking, you don't like historical groups, it's probably not going to work. Put yourself in places that you like, that you enjoy being in, activities you enjoy, and you're more than likely going to make friends that way. And so within Freemasonry, what I would say is, first and foremost, ask yourself, do you enjoy, first of all, do you enjoy being part of groups, period? Do you enjoy historical groups? Do you enjoy potentially public speaking, memorization? Do you enjoy kind of more philosophical pursuits? Have you heard about Freemasonry in your life? Is it something that pops up at different times? You know, um, do you have family members who've been Freemasons? If all of that is the case, then by joining, you're more than likely going to find friends through it. But I've known guys who joined exclusively to make friends without any real interest in Freemasonry in any other sense. And it didn't really work because they didn't have the same interests as everybody else who was there. I hope that made sense. Let me know if it did or if it didn't. I'm not saying joining Freemasonry to make friends is bad. I'm saying joining Freemasonry just to make friends without any other interests in kind of ritual, ceremony, history, family connections, that might not work as much as you'd like it to. The application of knowledge is wisdom. Um, Hello, Dan. How's it going? Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. How is it going for you, sir? Thank you so much for being here, as always. The application, be Sizzle. I think you're new to the stream. Let me know how you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts on Freemasonry. I'm just hanging out, chatting. Um, it was Marcus. It was really fun. Do you follow me on Instagram, anything like that? Because I hope that you do, because I had a great time. Wisdom is I would say I mean, I always like that famous quote, right? Wisdom is, I always really like that famous quote, right? Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put it into, knowledge, sorry. Knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing you don't put it in fruit salad. No worries if you ever do Instagram. That was a weird way to say that. I hope that you'll check out at Square and Compass Promotions. It would be greatly appreciated. Don't do Instagram, sorry. No worries. Give me some good advice. I don't know. For that, you'd have to check with the local. Um, you'd have to check with the local. You'd have to check with the local, with the American. What's the word I'm looking for? You'd have to check with American immigration, because I do not know. But I mean, what I would say is make sure you follow all the rules and regulations. Are you in the UK? I am not in the UK. So let me know though, Dan, Marcus, let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I would love to hit the like and subscribe button if you can. That would be truly appreciated. I'm going to be ending this stream shortly. But I do hope everybody's doing well. I will be back on at 1 a.m. And tomorrow, my plan is to talk about. Freemasonry and International Day of Persons with a Disability. So, what I'd say, my advice, Dan, to everybody, make sure that when you are traveling, you are compliant with all the rules, regulations, and requirements of the travel for the country to which you're going, whether it be the USA or anything else. Taking shortcuts is not worth it, I promise you. Thank you, Courtney, for being here as always, and thank you for always being a supporter of Square and Compass Promotions. And I guess what I'd say is, everybody watching this, let me know if you have any thoughts about Freemason, about things you want me to cover. I'm always asking that. Or if you've seen times where we within Freemasonry um, where we within Freemasonry are able to um, support those with disabilities, right? I appreciate that, Dylan, but you should respect me because I'm so handsome, not because I have a disability. But I do appreciate that very much, Dylan. That's very kind of you. Um, what I would say is, to its credit, again, Freemasonry has done a lot throughout the world, throughout the different lodges, to welcome members with different disabilities, whether they be physical disabilities, like mental health issues, physical disabilities, blind, um, you know, deaf. A lot of that comes down to how we create, not create, but how we outfit our buildings. Um, do we have accessible doors, ramps, sound systems for those who are hard of hearing? Do we have braille signage, right? Do we have accessible uh, accessible information, right? All that stuff is really, really important. So, my advice on that. And I'll talk about it more tomorrow because I think that's be really worthwhile. Looking so good has nothing. I do not know what that means at all, Jim Rapp. I'm interesting, Thomas. I've talked about this before. Within Freemasonry, one of the things we're encouraged to do is study the seven liberal arts and sciences, and that includes studying astronomy. I've actually had a couple NASA scientists on this channel before, including scientists from JPL, scientists from the Euclid Space Mission, and it's been awesome. Um, that has happened. I heard of somebody who actually got frostbite and lost all of their fingers for trying to travel from United States to Canada. So, yeah, that does happen. Which is very unfortunate, but make sure you're doing it the right way because you're putting yourself at risk and you could be putting others at risk potentially by doing it the wrong way. Having said that, I do understand, why it is that some people when fleeing terrible situations do have to do what they think is best for themselves or their family. But just remember the risk you're putting yourself in and potentially others. We're going to give this another few minutes. Please, as always, take a moment, hit that like button and subscribe button. We'll be ending this stream soon, but don't worry, I'll be back on tonight at 1 a.m. and then 1 p.m. tomorrow. But all right, guys, I think we'll end this stream for now. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you all soon. People must be, yeah. So I try not to judge them for their efforts because I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up or live in a place where you feel like you have to flee. But still, just remember the risks. All right, guys, thank you all so much. I will see you all soon. Have an excellent, excellent day. Come back in about 12 hours. See me tonight at 1 a.m. All right.